I want to start off by asking a question. Can you predict the future? You may have said no, that you cannot predict the future. I know for starters that I definitely cannot predict the future. However, I still want you to take this scenario into perspective. So imagine having a friend who has been depressed and believes that living every day feels like it's only prolonging their suffering. They believe that death is the only way to relieve the suffering. With that being said, would you support their decision to undergo physician-assisted suicide? How do you know that there isn't a chance of them recovering from their depression? Things will get better, considering that you can't predict the future. This debate can be compared to others in the case of what we should do when pain and suffering become too much for one to handle. Although this scenario depicts depression, a mental illness, there are various reasons why some believe that euthanasia needs to be included as an end-of-life care option. The legalization of euthanasia is an ongoing discussion. However, I propose that euthanasia is morally wrong, thus impermissible. A potential resolution to begin reducing the desires to undergo euthanasia is to instill measures that improve end-of-life care, as well as offer mental health assistance and support to alleviate some of those concerns in regards to how should we prepare ourselves when pain and suffering become too much. I want to begin with why there's a need to address euthanasia. There are many arguments to euthanasia, which include allowing an individual autonomy, reducing pain and suffering, and providing psychological reassurance to dying patients. These aren't the only arguments for euthanasia, but these are just a few common ones that people have. So in regards to autonomy, it can be argued that this is an individual's right, which includes person's preference and personal life plans. Thus, allowing euthanasia is merely another matter of ensuring a person can exercise a right that they are entitled to. To go into the argument of euthanasia reducing pain and suffering, there are accepted standards of what constitutes pain. So it's measurable. Based on statistics for the United States, for instance, euthanasia would help relieve the pain of about 25,000 people or fewer of the 2.3 million Americans who die every year on average. So this would impact a small percentage of people, but these are lives nonetheless. So these lives would be able to achieve their end-of-life goals. Another argument in favor of euthanasia is that patients may attain psychological reassurance when understanding that euthanasia is attainable as an alternative if dying becomes too painful or too stressful. This may offer peace of mind to those who are worried about personal health concerns, which have inflicted stress and fear for some time. However, back to my argument for why euthanasia is morally wrong. Shouldn't a life be deemed valuable and thus protected until inevitable death? Seeing that death is inevitable, that is, I'm not saying that it's our job to prolong life, but rather it's our job to take on the perspective that having the ability to stay alive should be taken rather than accepting a premature death. Once again, seeing that death is inevitable. Life is a privilege and a right, and that's why there are measures to protect life. For example, murder is illegal because it takes away somebody's right to life. So to undergo euthanasia violates your right to stay alive. In addition to this perspective, there are other factors such as coercion from family members or personal feelings that result in negative self-esteem or stress that cause people to support euthanasia at their worst times in life. There is not an effective way to monitor these scenarios, thus euthanasia should not be permissible. To further support my claim, I would like to take certain mental illnesses into perspective. Certain mental illnesses have the potential to make life very difficult to those who have to consistently monitor and treat them. These illnesses have the ability to inhibit daily habits and result in a lot of stress to the person. Unfortunately, while some may recover or take medication to monitor the effects of certain mental illnesses, the suffering is still prolonged to some extent. Although pain can be measured with mental illness, should a depressed patient, whereby their depression causes suicidal ideology, be allowed to exercise their autonomy to commit suicide? Would it be at the initial feelings of depression, when they should be allowed to commit the suicide, after medication or treatments have failed them, that they should commit suicide, or after a certain length of time where they can request euthanasia or the physician-assisted suicide? Should the mental health standpoint be considered as much as a physical health standpoint when deciding if euthanasia is permissible? There are no concrete standards as to what pain and suffering is too much for a person to bear. We have to take the patient's word for it. So my main concern is that allowing euthanasia removes someone's chance to have a future of healing or finding the value in life. With that being said, I want to propose a practical plan to support my stance. I believe that providing better end-of-life care can deter people from the idea that ending their life through euthanasia is the only solution. Every scenario for why someone supports euthanasia is different, of course. I believe that a starting point to deterring support from euthanasia begins with providing patients a better sense of comfort through mental health care assistance. Counselors, religious figures, or loved ones can be taught how to provide this support to patients who feel like death is the only solution. They can also serve as encouragement to continue living and to find the value in life. This way, patients will fully understand and be able to reflect on their decision before deciding to undergo euthanasia as the last resort or the only option. Once again, not all scenarios are the same. However, stating that starting with these measures can produce an impact that will cause more people to choose living over choosing to undergo euthanasia. To conclude, I presented my argument that euthanasia is morally wrong and impermissible. A solution to eliminating the desire for euthanasia is providing end-of-life care through the use of mental health professionals, loved ones, and religious leaders that can be there to provide support to patients that are having difficulty at that stage in their life. A call to action would be to remember the positive aspects in life and uplift those around you who feel like death is the only chance at freedom when pain and suffering is feeling like it's becoming too much for them to handle. Having a more optimistic and determined mindset towards life would also help the stance that euthanasia is not morally permissible. Thank you, and I hope you take these standpoints into consideration in supporting that euthanasia is not morally permissible.